Where's the video? Oh, yeah.
Embiid stepping back and stroking two. Bogdanovich thinking about a three. There it is. Yes!
See it again. No double team help, and Embiid takes it right to the rack. Embiid, step back, jumper, you bet!
There he is again. The Euro step there. Embiid getting Gobert to fight.
What's going on, everybody? Brand new episode of the Feed Embiid tonight. Monday night. My guy, Carlin, again for a third episode in a row, is joining me today. Kai, how are you, my good friend?
I'm good, Austin Krell. How about you, my guy?
Nothing's different. Yeah. Another late night writing last night, and it's the same old business as usual.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that, man. The grind of the season. We're coming down to that final stretch, man. Playoffs start in a month, basically 5 weeks.
That's right. So we have a lot to get down to. Usually in a regular season, the playoffs would be beginning next week.
They would be.
Yeah. So we got 5 weeks left, so we're obviously a month behind there. But the Sixers find themselves tied for first place with 5 weeks left in the regular season. They are locked with the Nets. The Nets have been they'll call it missing guys all season long. I'll call it what it actually is, and that is load managing guys all season long. That's that. No one cares about the regular season. It's about the playoffs. In the modern NBA in some respects. So they're fighting with the Nets for that first seed. Milwaukee's 3 games back. So tonight what we're going to do, 5 weeks left in the season, 19 games left in the regular season docket. We're going to talk about how the Sixers have gotten to this point in the road ahead. And then we're going to kick off with what we see out west and who you like out west. I have a surprise team that I'm going to take out west, but I'm curious to see who you think is coming out of the West this year. Again,
you have a surprise team.
Yeah. Again, love the we appreciate the support as always, and we like, subscribe, rate, review, listen, watch YouTube. SoundCloud if you're not an Apple user, Apple Pods if you are an Apple user. But tonight, let's start off with the how they've gotten to this point. Kai, I'm curious to see what you are seeing and what besides the obvious Joel Embiid and the all that he's been this year. What has gotten them to this point?
What has gotten them to this point, honestly, I think it's the fact that there's actually the good roster around Joel and Ben, a roster that actually fits around what those two guys do. Danny Green has been like a really underrated part of all of this. Because I remember everybody in the beginning of the season when you got off to that slow start, I mean, everybody was killing him. Oh my God, Danny Green, he's terrible. He's the guy who missed a shot in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Oh, he sucks. And it's like, dude, no, Danny Green he does this for a living. This guy is a shooter, a proven veteran. Like, no, knock it off. I think, Austin, he's shooting like 47% from deep since the All-Star break. Like, he's been absolutely terrific. I think his presence has been huge. Seth Curry, even though Seth really hasn't been able to really get into a groove really since he came back from COVID, he's really been up and down. But that's a really huge thing to have on this team. Doc Rivers has done wonders, I think, Austin, just from a culture standpoint, an accountability standpoint, and really getting these guys to really play well. That's probably what I've seen the most, other than obviously Joel being an absolute animal, whenever he gets into that mode.
Yeah. I think Danny Green has been a revelation for this team. And not even just like his production, but his durability at his age, 35, 36. I think he's probably younger than that. I think he's like 33. I don't know the exact number, but point is that he's been remarkably durable. and he's been consistent, and he's been really helpful for this group. He really has only had like one slump this year, and the rest of the time his 3-point shooting is tremendous. And he stepped up and played in those grueling 48-minute games where they had guys missing due to COVID. So he's really been an unsung hero for this group this year. I think on the defensive side of the ball too, he's been really good with his hands in the passing lanes and perturbing guys as they attack the rim, going baseline or straight line drives. He's been huge for them on both ends of the court, like a Robert Covington type. If Robert Covington were actually an all-around good player, and, what is he on a basis type?
Right.
I think Tobias Harris, not just the offensive side of what he's doing, his defensive side, I think, has been one of the most underrated areas of his game this year. And like he isn't the most athletic guy. He's not necessarily the most agile guy. He has to stay really quick on his feet. And he's strong. He's been effective though in defending and holding his own against other lineups. And I feel like with Tobias, he has fortified this three-headed defensive monster of Joel, Ben, and Tobias. They can trust him to be a positive defender. And that wasn't really the case when he first got here, or really throughout his career prior to Philadelphia. So I think that ability to be a shot creator on the perimeter and a scorer, on 3 different levels, but also to hold his own and be a plus defensively, has really helped them become this remarkable defensive team that they've been this year. They were as good this year as they were advertised last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's because of the roster pieces around them, though. I mean, a lot of it was I think a lot of guys obviously played out of position last year, obviously. Tobias is a 4. He can play the 3 for some stretches, but he is a 4. And that's why this year he's been terrific on both ends of the floor. You touched on it a little bit offensively, but really going into what he brings to the floor defensively, he has been terrific on that end. He locked up Julius Randle pretty damn good in their matchups with the Knicks. And Randle, I feel like Harris should have had Randle's all-star spot this year. I'm just going to come out and say it. I feel like Harris should have taken his spot. I feel like Harris should have taken Nikola Vucevic's spot as well. Like either one of those guys, whatever. Tobias has been absolutely terrific this year. And it's because, Austin, he's put in a spot where he can succeed. With Jimmy, when he first got here, he was pretty much just asked to stand in the corner and shoot threes, right? Then last year, Jimmy's gone, JJ's gone. Now they're asking him to be their closer, their best 3-point shooter to space the floor, and they're also asking him to play, legit defense on the other end. That's a lot to ask. This year, they finally got shooters. They finally moved Tobias back to his natural position at the 4, and they're reaping the benefits of it because there's a lot that this guy can do on the floor.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like the one thing that he's really improved upon, that even when his athleticism can kind of limit him sometimes, not the fastest, not the biggest, not the most agile. I think what has really helped him is his timing on the defensive end of the floor. He's had a lot of those plays where, the guy goes up with it and he strips it off his leg and out of bounds, or he'll strip it and the guy won't will fumble the shot, fumble the ball. I think Tobias has been really good at that this year. I also think that he's been good with timing deflections and blocks at end of shot clocks. He's really he's been disciplined in that he's not committing late brain dead fouls, and he's knocking the ball away at the right time. And I think that has been so huge for this team, because even though their offense hasn't been the top rated offense in the NBA, their defense has been elite.
Terrific.
Yeah, all season long. So I think that's really how this team has asserted itself as a number 2, number 1 seed. I also just think that they've been one of the more consistent teams out of all the teams in the East. Like the Bucks have been up and down, even
Yeah.
if they're starting to get in the swing. Celtics have been miserable. Miami's been up and down with COVID stuff. I mean, hell, the Hornets are the 4 seed right now. The Hawks are the 4 seed.
Yeah, exactly.
The Knicks right now are the 8 seed. So I mean, that means that there are teams that should be playing well that aren't, and that are falling by the wayside. Right now, if the playoffs started today, the Sixers would be the 1 seed. They would play the Knicks in the first round, and then in the second round, they'd play one of the Hornets or the Hawks. I think it's the Hawks.
Wow.
So that's what you're looking at.
Wow.
That's what you're looking at. What would you bet the odds are they get to the conference finals?
If it stays out like that, if it stays out like that, then yeah, they're going to the conference finals easily. Like,
I think that would be incredible. And then the Nets are going to fight with the Nets would play with the Bucks.
Yeah.
To get there, so it would be a bloodbath. It would be a battle between Milwaukee and Brooklyn. Who knows? Maybe Milwaukee pulls it off. Probably not, but we'll see. And then if not, maybe the Nets are tired, and that's an exhausting series. Durant's playing down a spot or up a spot to try to defend Giannis. That tires him out a little bit. I'm not fantasizing. I'm just saying that I think it's possible.
I feel like though, if you were to like kind of look back, I think like there were a couple times where the team that swept their first 2 playoff series, at least recently, they seem to always trip up in the conference finals. Yeah. So I mean, the biggest examples that point out to me are the 2005 Heat, who they swept their first 2 rounds, but then lost to Detroit in Game 7 in the conference finals, and then I think it was the 2010 Magic, when they came off that NBA Finals run. The 2010 Magic swept Charlotte round 1, then they swept Atlanta round 2, and then they found themselves down 3-0 to Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2010. They ended up losing that series in 6. So that was the Vince Carter year when Carter played for Orlando. So I always feel like you should always be challenged early.
You're right, because Charlotte got in with Gerald Wallace.
And Steven Jackson, yeah.
And then Cleveland was up as like the 1 seed, and they lost to Boston in the second round. And then it was Boston, Orlando, and Boston beat Orlando. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Boston went up 3-0 in that series, which everybody was like, "Yo, what the hell?" You know what I'm saying? This Magic team just made the NBA Finals the year before, and they added Vince Carter, and they just swept the first 2 rounds, yet they found themselves down 0-3. So for me, I always feel like it's better. I always feel like it's better to just like kind of be challenged early before that conference final round.
Okay. So you know what that series was? I still thinking about that series. That was the iconic Will goes to the loose ball. Rondo reaches out. Yeah. Picks it up and lays it up and in. And that was
that's that one.
All out hustle play to end all hustle plays right there. And that was like sort of like what set the tone. And then LeBron leaves and all that.
Right.
But yeah, no, you are right. I think it's better to have a little bit of, even if the fans have to sweat it out a little bit, especially in Philadelphia. That means like your own existence.
Right.
But I think it is better to have a little bit of that adversity, a little bit of that challenge in that first round or so. I do think, though, there's something to be said for the Sixers get off their feet as much as possible. The starters aren't required to play 48 minutes a night to give the team a chance to win. If the Sixers win, you can get that 1 seed, and assuming the standings sort of maybe they rearrange in some order, but generally speaking, they're there. I do like their chances to get to the conference finals. The only thing that I think could really be a little bit challenging is the play-in tournament is a 7, 8, 9, 10 this year. I think that means that the Celtics, the Heat would also be playing with the Knicks. So
I thought the Heat were the 6th seed. They're not.
I'll have to look it up. But I do think there is a little bit of diciness, be careful what you wish for type thing there.
A little bit. I feel like Austin, if Philadelphia were to play New York round 1, let's just say they play the Knicks, right? I feel like the Knicks will
you're
give
right.
them.
You're right. So the Heat would play the Bucks in round one. It's the
Yeah,
Sixers
I thought so.
right now. Celtics would play the Nets round one, and then the Knicks. The Sixers would play one of the Celtics, the Knicks, the Pacers, and the Bulls right now.
Honestly, Austin, I feel like if let's just say it's the Knicks, right? Like let's just say kind of things just stay the way they are. And it's Sixers Knicks. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, it's the Knicks, they should sweep them. And I think New York could actually I feel like New York could get a game though. I feel like the Knicks could definitely at least get a game there just because the Knicks challenged them. All 3 games were close. And especially these last 2. The one in Philadelphia, they needed Tobias Harris to kind of go off and really close that game out down the stretch. And then they really struggled against them up in MSG a couple days later, March 21st. They needed overtime. And in overtime, they needed Danny Green to just like make every single 3-pointer, and plus a random awkward floater that he just randomly threw up there. And then Tobias got fouled late. He makes the free throw. Sixers escape with a 1-point win. So yeah, the Sixers would beat the Knicks. It would either be a sweep or maybe even 5 games. But the Knicks would definitely challenge the hell out of them all of those games just because of how physical they are.
Yeah, that was that wild game was when Tobias's hand went down after the foul and he bricked both freebies, and then Julius Randle comes down, ties at that absurd corner. Julius Randle has missed a lot of clutch shots this year. That was a hell of a shot he made in that game that sends overtime.
Yeah, honestly, I got Kawhi vibes with that shot.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, you're right. Oh man, wow. So that's what they're looking at. That's where they've how they've gotten to this point, and that will be their playoff path right now. And I gotta tell you that I can see why they desperately want that 1 seed. That's a vastly different path than being the 2 seed in the conference right now. Right now, that means Celtics, and then that means the Bucks or something of that variety. So that's definitely going to be a war for that the difference between a 1 and a 2 seed in this year. Now, let's take a look at the road ahead. They have a quite frankly brutal schedule coming up over the next couple games. They are in Dallas tomorrow playing the Mavericks. The Mavericks have been sort of sputtering all season long. They're fighting the good fight and trying to stay relevant. They're probably, 6th or 7th team in a Western Conference that's basically got 5 teams that are in it for contention. So they have Dallas, and they come home for Brooklyn, home for the Clippers, home for the Warriors, home for the Suns, then a 2-game trip in Milwaukee back-to-back, or Thursday, then Saturday in Milwaukee. By the way, all 6 games are on all 7 games on national television. So they have 7 games in a row on national TV. That's going to be a hell of a schedule. That's really going to be the story of who this team is. Did they beat up on bad teams in the first part of the year, or are they real? They do have a couple, real wins to their credit, I would say. Like the
Utah game.
The Utah game was one of them. The Lakers game was another one. But really, I guess the Celtics game in Boston was one of them because they played Jason Tatum finally. But that's Phoenix is a very, 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 very good team. The Nets are the Nets, obviously. We'll see if one or any of the Nets are on PTO that day. We'll find out. The Clippers, tough. Golden State, Curry's tough, but after that, not much. And then, of course, the 2 Milwaukee prove yourself games. So that's a really, really, really tough stretch for anybody, really. And I think, obviously, they gave Danny, they gave Tobias off last night because they wanted to get them ready for that stretch. And they've been 2 of the most available players all season long for this team. They've missed one or 2 games apiece, if that.
I think last night was Danny's first missed game of the year, and I know Tobias missed some time because of the protocols in January.
But also, I think he hurt his knee and missed 2 games after.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was so they've been 2 of the most available players, but they got. I mean, they didn't need them to beat Oklahoma City the other night.
Yeah.
Team's one of the better tanking teams I think I've ever seen. They were 32. They're a joke, but they're not that big of a joke.
Exactly.
So obviously the health is going to be major in this stretch. Really, this is where you need Ben Simmons to come to play. And
how many times have we said that though?
I know, and I read Kyle Newbeck's stuff all the time, and one of the points he's made recently is, at what point do we stop saying like I'm surprised by this and more accept that this is just the norm now? At least with and he made a couple jumpers last night, and so I don't expect that anything's going to start miraculously clicking there, but I think Joel makes a good point. Like, you have to make them guard you. Now, Joel's a smart guy. He's really a smart guy. I mean, they're not going to guard Ben. There's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Why would you ever play up on him when he wants to drive past you? He wants you to play up on him. You're going to make him make shots all the time. So they're never going to guard him, but he might as well use that space and do something with it that's productive rather than slinging passes. But I've been going back and rewatching some of their games recently, during this stretch, and every game there's like 3 or 4 times where Ben drives to the lane, has a, as Mark Zumoff would say, a pathway to glory, and then he's throwing it behind his head and regressing the basketball back up to the perimeter instead of progressing it towards the rim.
Just how many times have we seen that though? And it's just it gets real frustrating because Simmons with the amount of skill that he has and the size that he has should be averaging like 20 to 25 a night easily. Because he's so much bigger than everybody else, he's so much stronger than everybody else. If he had the mindset of just going up and just dunking on people, then he would be. It would take his game to another level. And I feel like that's really going to kind of be a big detriment come playoff time. Now, I mean, it does help now that they have guys like Seth and Danny around them, to where like teams really have to pay attention to Seth and Danny, and maybe they won't be able to pack the paint as much. But it's just like there's a reason why he struggled so much against Boston in 2018. There's a reason why he struggled so much against Toronto in 2019. I think he only had really one good playoff game against Toronto in 2019. And it was Game 6, to force that Game 7. He really wasn't good in that series, at least offensively.
To his credit, he stepped up when they needed him the most.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He did play well in that Game 6. They needed him the most. You are right about that.
I mean, they did have a chance to go up 3-1 in that series, and he was MIA in Game 4.
Yeah, he was MIA in Game 4, and I mean, like, let's be real. Toronto won that game because Kawhi, he made some ridiculous shots, to really, clinch that game for the Raptors. But it's just like when it comes to Ben, I'm not really sure what to really expect of him past round. But once they play the elite teams, because what I'm saying, you can get away with that against New York, in round 1. And then in round 2, depending on who they play, I mean, I think the Heat are going to move up to 4 or 5. I don't think the Hawks and the Hornets are going to be the 4 or 5 seeds when it's all said and done. But let's just say they do play Miami round 2, and you got to go up against a guy like Eric Spoelstra. And I will say this, Austin. Sure, Philadelphia beat Miami in 2018. But I believe Eric Spoelstra coached circles around Brett Brown in that series. The Sixers won that series in 5 because they were the much more talented team. They had the better team just from top to bottom, and they beat them in 5. And if Dwayne Wade was 4 years younger, who knows? Maybe he wills them, to that series win, because he should. Right. Because remember, Wade won Game 2 in Philadelphia. Like, Wade stole Game 2 on the road. And he almost
they were up like 16 in the fourth quarter, and the Sixers came back and tied that game. And then Dwayne Wade stole the ball from Ben and laid it up and in.
Exactly.
And they left.
Exactly. And then do you remember the step back jumper to really seal it? I mean, if Wade was 4 years younger, then who knows? But
that series, they trailed by double digits in 4 of the 5 games. And
I think so. I think you're right.
They never trailed in game. I don't think they ever trailed by like more than like 1 points in game 5. But game 1, they were down like 12. Game 2, they were down 16. Game 3, they're down 12. Game 4, they're down 12. They were down double digits the entire series and ended up winning it in the fourth quarter of their games.
Because they were the better team.
Yeah.
Like, they just had better talent.
Yeah, they were the more talented team for sure.
And I feel like if Philadelphia were to match up with Miami this time around, I would still take the Sixers because, again, they're the more talented team in this case. But the Heat they would definitely push the hell out of that team, though. Between Jimmy, Bam, if Oladipo's healthy, he obviously would help, and just the brilliance of Spoelstra. Now, granted, Doc Rivers is an amazing Hall of Fame coach in his own right, so it'll be interesting to see how Doc and Eric kind of go back and forth. They've obviously had their own. They've obviously had a lot of playoff battles when Doc was in Boston, but I'm very interested to see that matchup. If there was any like early playoff matchup to watch, I'd be interested in watching Philly and Miami.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think Miami would have an advantage in that series to some degree because I think Jimmy Butler knows their two best players' weaknesses better than anybody does. I think he'd be able to exploit that.
Jimmy's really good with the mind games.
Yeah, I don't know who I would pick to win the series. I mean, more consistent team, but I think Miami would have some layer of an advantage there. I'm not saying they win the series, but I think they would be not as cut and dry as a 3 versus 6 or a 2 versus whatever.
Right.
First round. We're going to move on real quick, but Chilla has what's up? Think about the X's and O's. Appreciate you. I have gotten into those film breakdown videos recently, so that they have been a popular hit on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Hope you keep continuing to enjoy them. Booney I think his name is Brian Moonen. He says, "How do you guys remember everything?" I don't know. It's sad.
I don't know either. I don't know. I mean,
else. I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I do know what happened in Game 2 in the 2018 playoffs. For the
right.
It's sad, but here we are. So let's go over to the West. Now, the West, as it's currently constructed, it's a very fascinating standing at this moment. Right now, it's Utah first, Phoenix second, LA third, Denver fourth, LA Lakers fifth, Blazers sixth, Dallas seventh, Memphis 8, 9, 10 is San Antonio and Golden State. And the Pelicans are a game and a half back of that, the other playing game. So give me your top 5 teams in the West in order.
I don't know, because like right now the Lakers aren't healthy. But if LeBron and AD are healthy, then they're my top team in the West. I'm just going to assume guys are healthy. If guys are healthy, Lakers are 1. 2, Austin. I would have to say Denver. Like I'm really digging the hell out of this Nuggets team, and I know they just blew a huge lead to Boston, and the Celtics went on some crazy 40-8 run to end that game. But I really love that Nugget team. I would say the Clippers 3, I would say the Jazz 4, and the Suns 5.
Wow. Okay. So your pick to come out of the West then would be the Lakers.
It's still the Lakers. If LeBron and AD are healthy going into the playoffs, you are not beating LeBron James and Anthony Davis 4 times in 7 games. It's not happening.
Okay. Does, number one, the high ankle sprain worry you a little bit? Because that isn't your typical ankle sprain. That's a thing that, look at football players. That lingers for months. It happened to Lane Johnson, and he wasn't right for the rest of this. I think for the following season, he wasn't right.
Yeah, you're right. The high ankle sprain is definitely concerning as hell. It is definitely concerning, but I mean, just they're both so talented, and LeBron is LeBron. I just feel like at this point the guy is just like he's made of titanium. Like he just goes out there and plays. I know he's really been hit by some injuries while with the Lakers so far. I remember the injuries cut short that first season, and then obviously this is 3rd year with LA, and he's still getting some injuries hit here and there. But he's getting older. Father Time is undefeated. but he's in his 18th year, and he's still putting up just like ridiculous numbers. And I would have to like if he's healthy and ready to go, man. I'm not betting against LeBron James. Basically, I refuse to.
I would generally agree with you. However, this is how I would rank my 5 in the West.
Okay.
Assuming health.
Yeah, assuming health.
Number 1, the Lakers. I'll give the champs their credit.
For sure.
Number 2, the Phoenix Suns.
Really?
I love everything about the Suns. I'll explain why.
Okay.
My 3, Denver.
Okay.
My number 4, Utah. Number 5, Clippers.
Wow, you got the Clippers down low. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, listen, I think you won't ever see a more like in your face example of why having a point guard matters than the Clippers.
But I mean, they went out and got Rondo.
Yeah, it did, but I just feel like I don't trust them because Kawhi. I mean, I think the Kawhi playoff run in Toronto was not really an indication of who Kawhi. Like that was his peak. I don't think he's the player that he was since that run. You agree?
I don't know, man, because I mean, if you look at his Clipper numbers, it's not like he's not producing. Like he's still producing at a very, very high level.
No, of course he is. Of course he is. But he's not like this robotic, unstoppable force of nature that he was with Toronto in that playoff run. And
I will agree with that. I'll give you that. Okay. I mean, I feel like we saw signs of that last year because everybody wants to get on Paul George. But Kawhi was terrible in that Game 7 too. Like if you look at Kawhi's numbers in that Game 7 against Denver, it's like garbage. Like the numbers were just absolutely terrible. Yeah. So I can get with that a little bit.
Yeah. Then, like Paul George, I think excellent regular season player. He's really answered a lot of the criticism in this regular season. It doesn't matter what happened in the regular season with the Clippers. No one's impressed by that anymore.
Exactly. It's all about what you do in the playoffs.
Right. So as of now, I don't trust him. Who is their big man? Like Serge Ibaka is a stretch 4, stretch 5. Can he really match up with other teams' bigs? And I think my major concern with the Clippers is like, who is their leader? I don't think Kawhi is that old. I don't think Paul George is has that respect in the locker room. Is it Rondo? Is Rondo really your leader? Is Tyronn Lue prepared to coach this team in the playoffs? Have they had enough time together in the regular season? There's one of the two always missing the entire time.
I don't know. With the Tyronn Lue thing, I'm a Tyronn Lue guy.
Okay.
Because, like, I feel like Tyronn Lue deserves a ton of credit for, what happened in Cleveland. Obviously, he had LeBron James. I get it. But I've read so many, like, stories and reports. I think ESPN put one out. I think a bunch of guys from the Cleveland Plain Dealer put stuff out about how Tyronn actually really managed LeBron and managed to at least get the what's the word I'm looking for? The respect and the attention of both LeBron and Kyrie. And I think that's incredibly impressive to get those two guys on your side. Because we all know LeBron's history of just like, coaches and things like that. We all remember that. Remember with that report that came out that LeBron emasculated David Blatt? So, I mean, like if Tyronn Lue, kind of turned that around, all right, So I feel like he could do the same thing in LA with Kawhi and Paul George. So I'm very interested to see what they do come playoff time with Lue as head coach.
Imagine getting emasculated, just having your your manhood revoked by LeBron.
By LeBron James.
You're not good enough. Stand down. Okay, whatever you say.
All right.
Now, here is why I am picking the Nuggets to come out of the West. And
Wait, you're picking Denver? Okay.
No. I meant Phoenix. Here's why.
You're picking Phoenix to make the finals.
Yes, come out of the West. I love that team.
Wow.
I think they have a great balance of playmaking from either guard spot. I think their leader is their best player, Chris Paul. And I think they have this even balance of like guys who don't need the ball to be effective in Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges. They have good two-way wings in those two guys. They also have Jay Crowder, who's been huge for them. And I think Ayton's really stepped up a lot for them as well. Like he sees his role with this team and he buys into it.
Yeah.
And to get him he's improved to a degree that I don't know I would have foreseen out of him, given like some of the limitations and the knocks against him coming out of the draft a couple years ago. Like he's really bought in as a rebounder, as a capable scorer. Still not a great defender, but
yeah.
I mean their first five is really good. Their bench has some worries. Like Cameron Payne's a gamble come playoff time. Sharp is going to be a big role player for their bench, and
Dario, the homie.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see how that works. But I think they have this really interesting and effective combination of youth and veteran leadership. So they have the horses to play these long battles. They have a lead guard that has seen everything in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I just like their mix. And I think, assuming health, they're the team that's going to come out of the West.
Now, see, for me, I don't trust Phoenix just yet because none of those guys have playoff experience outside of Chris Paul and, Dario. You know what I'm saying? Like Devin
Are you
Booker.
saying Dario is not good enough to be one of your playoff leaders?
Dario's got 5 games 10 playoff games under his belt, good sir. First of all,
he has 9. You're right, 10.
Yeah, he's got 10. Both of those series are 5. But I mean, Devin Booker's never been to the playoffs. DeAndre Ayton's never been in the playoffs. Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson. These guys have never been to the playoffs. They've never understood what it takes to kind of get to the playoffs. I feel like if Phoenix were to keep their number 2 seed and take on a team like Dallas or Memphis, I would take Phoenix against either of those teams in a 7-game series. But then they would have to go up against a team like the Clippers or a team like or let's just say even the Lakers, even like let's just say it's them. They're not getting past either of those teams. For me, my team is my team to come out of the West is the Lakers if they're healthy. But if they're not and they're still dealing with some hobbling injuries and it hobbles them in the playoffs, I'm taking Denver.
Okay. I get why.
Yeah.
I've been really excited by and impressed with Michael Porter Jr.'s
me too.
Breakout this year. He's been electric. He's been he had a terrible game today, but he's giving them like double-doubles basically almost every game, averaging 20 for the season. He makes unbelievably difficult threes. I mean, hands in his face.
He does. He does. But my thing with Denver is, and I have to give a ton of credit to Aaron Gordon because he's finally found a role that fits him. The Magic were asking him to do way too much in Orlando. He is not a franchise guy. He's not. He is a perfect number 4 guy on your starting lineup who can contribute around, your star, in this case, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And he plays good defense. He rebounds well. And he plays a very, very good role for Denver. I even said that before he got drafted, too. I was like, if the Magic think Aaron Gordon is going to turn their franchise around, absolutely not. So,
yeah. Well, you have got a date with the controller pretty soon. Playing Zombies, is that right? You got the Xbox One?
No, I got Xbox Series S, man. I got the next gen console. I just ordered it. It just came.
Oh wow, that. So it's Xbox Next Gen. Is that what it is?
It's Xbox Series. You either get Series X or Series S. I went with the Series S because I don't play too many video games. I play like one or two, so I don't need like a lot of data storage.
Yeah.
And it's also the digital version. And
So
so
is that like the equivalent of the PlayStation 5?
yeah, it's the next gen console or whatever.
I'm still waiting for my PS5. We'll get there eventually. Kai, he covers the Sixers for the Sixers Wire. He's one of the best writers we got there. He's one of my best pals on the beat.
Yes, sir.
I cover the Sixers for the Painted Line, as you guys all know. Kai, thanks for joining me again. You can find him on Twitter at Kai_Carlin, where he talks about superheroes and the Sixers a lot. And he also on Instagram he likes to bitch about the Detroit Lions a ton too.
I know.
In their quarterback situation. Kai, as always, thank you for joining me. See you next week for another episode of the Feed to Embiid, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Later.